This video is dedicated by the Huberfeld family in memory of Pinchas ben Moshe Aaron Huberfeld, Alav Shalom. Hello and welcome to Jewish History and Daf Yomi. Today's daf has a reference to Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok. Now, it turns out there are two different Tanaim by the same name. These two names, Elazar and Tzadok, seem to repeat in the family, like we see, for example, with the house of Hillel, that the names Hillel and Shimon and Gamliel tend to repeat over and over again. So it's not entirely clear which of the two Elazar ben Tzadoks is referenced here. From the context, I would guess that this Gemara refers to the first of the two Tanaim, who lived at the end of the 1st century. His father, the Tzadok in the Elazar ben Tzadok, was the famous Tzadok who tried to hold off the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash by fasting for many, many years. And it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who intervened with Vespasian to seek medical attention for Tzadok, who was on the verge of expiring as a result of his tshuva and attempt to divert the horrible destruction. He was a famous businessman, and this is something actually I just talked about with my wife last night. She went to buy some nuts at a local grocery store, and it said on the package 12 ounces, and she brought it home, and it was like closer to 8 ounces, and she went back and she complained. She said, hey, Hin Tzedek, Moznayim Tzedek, you have to have kosher weights. But Elazar ben Tzadok was so scrupulous that one of the things he used to do is, he would sell wine. And the way you would sell wine back then, you wouldn't necessarily have lots of expensive bottles to sell with the wine. You would have a big barrel. People would come with their own containers, and they would say, I'd like to have, a liter of wine, please. You would measure out a liter in a measuring cup, and then you would pour from your measuring jar into their jar, which they would take home. But that meant that every time you used your measuring jar, there was a tiny film of wine that would be left over on the inside of your measuring jar. So that is technically something that you might have stolen from the person, because you ran it up to a liter and then you poured it into theirs and there was some left over for you. So once he gave 300 containers of wine for public benefit, just to make sure that he was being mezaka the rabbim, that he was benefiting the public for wine that he had inadvertently and unintentionally stolen. He witnessed the destruction of the temple and the economic ruin that followed. The other Elazar ben Tzadok was a descendant of the first, lived about a century later, was very close to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and was famous for saying that the rabbis may not impose a gezerah, a decree, that the community cannot maintain. This is written in Harios. Okay, I hope that illuminated your daf. It certainly did last night when I talked about it with my wife, and I wish you hatzlacha in your learning.